Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Tom Spencer from the Tax Department. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
It's my privilege to pray with you this morning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today with certain knowledge that if we humbly ask, you'll hear our prayer. We praise you as Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer. We thank you for our many gifts. We're especially thankful for the life of your Son, Jesus. As we approach today's business, we ask for strength and courage to make decisions that benefit the citizens of Tarrant County. Whether elected or hired, executive or craftsman, young or mature, we acknowledge our weakness and ask for your guidance in our daily lives. On this day of matters close at hand, we ask a special prayer for our soldiers who are far from home. We acknowledge their courage and bravery and ask that you keep them safe. We ask your blessing on those who protect us closer to home, policemen, firemen, sheriff's deputies, and constables. We acknowledge our frailty and ask that you bless those who dedicate their lives to protecting us. We ask a blessing for our caregivers, doctors, nurses, and aides, for they have dedicated their lives to serving others. At this time of year, we ask a blessing for teachers, professors, and administrators who have dedicated themselves to your profession, teacher. For those who are sick, we ask for healing. For those who are troubled, we ask for comfort. For those who are afraid, we ask for peace. For those who are lonely, we ask for an uplifted heart. We ask with the confident assurance that if we turn to you, we will find healing. We ask for courage to realize the dreams of those who have gone before us. Give us the strength to pursue those good and decent dreams. We ask for courage to recognize our responsibility to do our duty in all things. Help us to realize when we cannot do more and understand we should never do less. In a world full of problems, it sometimes seems we cannot make a difference. Even in this community, the problems may seem insurmountable. Give us the courage to do all that we can with what we have and with a joyful heart. As servants of the citizens of Tarrant County, we acknowledge our special responsibility and ask for courage and wisdom in our jobs. Help us to seek your will in all things and turn to you for guidance and strength. For it's in Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thanks, Tom. Good morning.
Good morning. Members of the Court, we have one announcement. It doesn't deal specifically with this agenda, but simply that the PEBC will be meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the Council of Governments in Arlington. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the regular meeting, the minutes of the regular meeting of June the 18th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under our proclamations, we have two proclamations. Commissioner Brooks.
One is for Know Your Health Day. The other is to honor Ms. Ann Rice, who will be retiring this week after years of service to our United Way. Both are for ratification only. I move their ratification.
Second. A motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, I want to, and I know that you are aware of this now, but last week one of our Tarrant County family members lost her only son in Afghanistan. Jeanette Stanley's son, William R. Moody, was killed in action on June the 18th. His rank was a specialist. He entered the Army on December 23, 2004, and had been stationed at Fort Carson since March of 2009. This was his third deployment to Afghanistan. He had
His first deployment began in May of 2009. He went back again in August of 2010, and then this most recent deployment began in November of 2012. He was 30 years of age. He drove, as I think he said on his Facebook page, he drove anything with big wheels or tracks. He was a member of the 32nd Transportation Company, 68th Combat Sustainment Support Battalion, 43rd Sustainment Brigade, 4th Infantry Division. I know that Jeanette and his wife both traveled to Dover to receive the body last week. They are now, I believe, in Colorado at Fort Carson for a memorial service. We're not exactly sure when the body will be home for a service here in this area. I talked with Jeanette yesterday. She acknowledged and thanked everyone for their prayers and for their efforts. I know that the HR department is closed in around her and is doing everything they can to help her at this point in time. I would simply ask that we all keep her and then her daughter-in-law and their grandchildren in our prayers. I would also ask that we go ahead and move all of our flags to half-staff from now until the end of this week, and then once we find out about the memorial service, then at that point in time, I would ask that we also communicate to all of our buildings to have our flags at half-mast at that point also. And we'll close the court today in memory of Specialist William R. Moody. Thank you all. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Magnus.
Thank you. Members of the court, we have 4 items to bring to you this morning. The first one, we're requesting that the court approve an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the City of Fort Worth on behalf of the medical examiner for forensic laboratory services.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a resolution which provides approval for the issuance of Series 2013A hospital revenue bonds in one or more series by the Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corp. for Cook's Children Medical Center in an amount not to exceed $80 million. This is to refinance various bond issues. Also, it is there to fund construction and equipment as it relates to 810 or 810 7th Avenue. We have received our fee, and also we have received a letter from Cook's addressing the county's hub policy.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, this is also an approval request of a resolution which provides approval for the issuance of 2013 hospital revenue bonds and by the Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corp. for Methodist hospitals in Dallas in an amount not to exceed $202 million. Some of this money is going to be used to refund or refinance some of the existing bonds. About $88 million of this will be expended in Dallas. About $112 million will be expended in Richardson. We have received our fee. Also, we have received a letter that addresses the county's hub policy. Also, both on this particular issue and item number 2, there are no liens or conditions on the property that would not allow for governmental activities.
I don't have a problem with this, but just out of curiosity, why would they come to Tarrant County for this and not use Dallas County?
We are beginning to limit some of the areas that are being covered by the Educational Facilities Corp. to those counties that basically surround us. and then some that we have done business with in the past, or hospitals that are in Tarrant County but may not actually receive the money in this county but in other counties. I know Randy's here if you would like for him to address that more specifically about Dallas County.
I just wanted to add that for the sake of clarity, the Methodist Hospital System of Dallas is different from Texas Health Resources, which operates the Harris Hospital, Methodist Hospital System here in Fort Worth.
We may have a
in
facility
Tarrant
in
County.
Tarrant County also.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Johnson, originally this issue was proposed to add funds for the Methodist facility in Mansfield. And due to some of their construction costs, that issue has been put on a later agenda for Methodist, and these two hospitals are going to receive the refinancing and the funding out of this bond issue. And it's really a regional picture that Methodist Hospitals of Dallas looks at, both Tarrant County, Dallas County inclusive. And we do have the consent from the county judge in Dallas and the county judge in Collin County as well for this issue.
I just didn't hear anything about anything in Tarrant County from the administrator.
And another element of it is this is a portion of a refinance of bonds that that Tarrant County and the Tarrant County Health Facilities Development Corp. issued previously to go and refund those bonds and refinance them.
Okay. I'll move approval.
Yes, sir.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Finally, members of the court, if we could go to item 4, requesting that the Commissioners Court concur with actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve a commercial lease agreement between the Hospital District and City Trends. This relates to a 12,504 square feet in the former Albertson building, which is located in Arlington.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Notter?
We have 3 claims today that the Risk Management Board is recommending the payment on for the amounts listed on your court communication. And just a note, on item number 3, that is a supplement. On vehicle damages, the original payment was for $3,143.89.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We almost covered all the precincts today. Precinct 1, you get the gold star. You're missing.
Ms. Glenn?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have several items today. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel agenda or to receive and file it. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, we're asking the court to approve a letter of agreement with the Hay Group. As the court is aware, the Hay Group has been evaluating our compensation and our benefit programs, and that's still underway. What we're asking the court for today is an amount not to exceed $16,000 so that Hay can do some additional analysis on our law enforcement structure. And of course, they will come back to the court with all of the information, comp and benefits at a later date.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of benefits for the law library. Ms. Whalen is going to be retiring on July 5th. We're asking for a waiver in the amount of approximately $5,000, and the impact will be to the law library fund.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking for another waiver of terminal benefits. This time it's for Constable Precinct 8. Senior Deputy Constable Willoughby is retiring at the end of this month with 400 vacation hours. The Constable is requesting a waiver effective July 1st, The impact to the general fund is approximately $12,700.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And number 5, our final waiver for today is for the Elections Administration Office. The Assistant Elections Administrator is retiring on July 5th with 400 vacation hours. Mr. Rayburn is requesting a waiver effective July 6th. The impact to the general fund we're estimating to be approximately $16,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 6, we're asking the court to approve a revision to the TO to reclass a building superintendent 2 in facilities management. The reclass will place this position at a building manager's position, a pay grade 71. This will allow for appropriate staffing for all of the downtown jail facilities. We're estimating a very minimal impact to the general fund, a little bit less than $400.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. When I saw this originally, I went in because I thought there was a shift in the organizational. I don't quite understand why we're calling it a shift in the organizational table when basically all it appears as though we're doing is that this position has been moved from one grade position to another grade position.
That's correct, Judge. So currently, the position is a building, let me look at my notes here. It's a building,
30.
it's a pay grade,
Going from 30 to 71.
correct. And so it is an occupied position, it's correct, going from 30 to a 71. And so basically, what we're asking the court to do is just to take the position in its current state, reclass it, create a different position so that this incumbent now will assume the responsibilities of a building manager.
So how is that different from a reclass? I mean, we talked about it, and I don't understand why that's different from simply saying we're going to take the position, the job to our job evaluation committee, and they're going to determine whether it's a reclass or not.
Right. The difference is that when we're reclassing to a position that exists already, there's no need for it to go to job evaluation committee. So we call that a match. So if we have position A and we're going to reclass it to position B, we already have Bs that exist, then we call it a match. And
Okay, so it's not that this position already exists under this current, it exists somewhere else in the county,
It exists in facilities.
somewhere else in facilities. Okay,
Correct.
okay. That's what was confusing me. I'm sorry.
The other part of this is that it goes from non-exempt to exempt, and that's not a decision that the Job Evaluation Committee is empowered to make.
Okay.
And again,
Well, I didn't hear the word match when we talked earlier, Angela. The match was what I missed in that process. So I think the match position is, I understand that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and those don't go before committee because those jobs have been evaluated
Right.
already.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 7, we're asking the court to approve our 2014 holiday schedule as outlined in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our final item is item number 8. We're asking the court to approve amendment number 6 and the revised attachment E to the agreement with HealthSmart Benefits Solutions, Inc. That's a lot of words and just a long way of saying this is our agreement with VSP. It's our provider for vision coverage for our employees and retirees. This is a 3-year agreement. It's effective 1/1/13. Legal has reviewed this agreement, and just as a reminder, vision benefits are covered 100% by employees and retirees, so the county doesn't subsidize the cost. And it's great coverage, by the way. Great benefit.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
to it. I can't believe purchasing didn't have anything today. I move approval of item 8H, 1A, and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments today?
I do have an appointment also to the Historical Commission. I passed out a copy of the resume from Wes Caldwell. I would move to appoint him to the Historical Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any other appointments? Appearing to be none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Mays?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several items for you this morning. The first is the monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mays.
Morning, morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I thought what I'd do is sort of give you the process that JPS is going through as it tries to determine not only its budget, but its strategic approach. When you come into an organization the size of JPS's, and you found that there might be some things that you could better address and better deal with, the first thing you do is you start working on the overall cultural changes. And we have 44 different locations and a main campus and 4,600 to 5,000 employees. Making those cultural changes is difficult. So the first thing we did at JPS is we tried to allow the employees to begin to believe in themselves, what they were doing and why they did it, and give them the trust and the faith that the things that JPS stood for and the role that they played in our community was valuable, and gave them a belief in that. Then the second thing I think you do is you have to give them the fact that they must believe in our patients. That just because somebody might find themselves in a financial situation and not being able to go to various other hospitals or other facilities doesn't mean that that person gets treated any differently, or that your patient satisfaction shouldn't be at the highest level. You shouldn't have that subliminal message in the back of your mind that, well, it doesn't matter how I treat this patient because they can't go to Baylor or they can't go to THR and receive their services. So you begin to change that attitude, and you begin to figure out how you change that process culturally in people, and we've done a few steps to make that happen. The most importantly is providing patient satisfaction scores for anybody that wants to see them, read them. We report them to our board with a full transparency, both for our doctors and our employees. The other thing we do, which I mentioned to you last time, is we as an administration round on our patients. You go into the patient's room and you say, how are we doing? What did we do? How's our food? What is it that we can do differently to help you be a better facility that provides health care? Once you get past that cultural change, and you're never quite finished with it, it's never a process by which you say, great, we've changed the culture, now everything's perfect. It's a constant due diligence to make that cultural change stick, stay, and improve. Then what you do is you try to figure out how you systematically change the process. Right now at JPS, we have processes that VTAC. We do really well one month, and then our numbers go down a little bit, and then we go up, and then we go down. That's a system in change. So what we're going to begin to now incorporate is a focus on the outcomes. And we're going to do that by a system that you've probably heard of called Lean Six Sigma. And that is incorporated in some organizations quite successfully. Some organizations have challenges with it. We will not become an organization that is 100% Lean Six Sigma. And what that does is it really, for us, focuses on the patient. It also has an understanding of how things get done, how you do them. Are there workarounds? Is one department doing it this way and another department doing it this way? And you look and you say, what's the systematic approach to that? Then you begin to remove non-valuable and wasteful things, things that occupy a lot of time, things that are wasteful for tax dollars, things that aren't efficient for the process. Then you begin to reduce variation, and that is I spoke to that you as a nurse on P4 can't do it the way T5 does it. We have to have some systematic approach to do it. It's not an independence, so that when a patient goes from ICU and then goes to a step-down unit and then goes to a discharge lounge, we make sure that we have the right process in place. And then I think you want to make sure that you have the right equipment, the right pay, the right situation. We've just done and completed a survey of where all of our pay scales are. And one of the things that we found it's really challenging at JPS to do a comparison of pay scales because we didn't even have job descriptions for a lot of places. We had over time evolved into a job description that looked very different from the job description for the same job but in another department. So getting that to a system is what that process is all about. So we're going to go through that process, and we're going to go through that, always concentrating on the outcomes. What can you measure? What can you look at that says, for example, if I've got someone that says, well, I want to make the patient stay better. Okay, what does that mean, and how can I calculate that? What does it mean to make the patient stay better? Did I get them in and out of the hospital more efficiently? Did I get them into our connection program more efficiently? Did I reduce the time from 30 days to 1 day? And then we've taken on that process to try to do that. So that's the process by which we go by. One of the things that you all may hear about that you'll get some phone calls from is from our physicians, because we're in the midst now of renegotiating physician contracts. And that's a challenge. It always is. It's inherent with it when you come in and tell somebody, I want to review what you do, how you do it, and I want to come up with the best system by which we compensate you and require you to do certain things. A lot of times people don't come in that meeting saying, thank you, I'm really glad you're going to look at my contract. Sometimes people come in with arms folded and get a little defensive. What we're going to try to do is our contracts in the past they've been more fee-based. And that is, if you provide this service, we pay you a fee. Here you go. And now you're seeing many systems change, and I think the federal government and state government and even local government is changing now based on performance. That is, what is your performance? Your performance is going to be based on your pay. So we're going to shift those from a fee-type structure to a performance-type structure. And trying to come up with the criteria by which you do that is challenging. What are we going to look at? What are we going to review? And the other thing is there's complications to it. For example, length of stay. If we just look at the length of stay of a patient, you have to first consider what's right for the patient. And secondly, the length of stay may be complicated because there's a lot of different departments that have to deal with lengths of stay. So you can't say you're in charge of length of stay, but over here it depends on what the admission is from the ED, and it matters what the hospitalist does for discharge orders. So a lot of it's interlinked. So we're now meeting with our doctors. We met last week with them, and all we did with our doctors is we met with every group, and we told them what empirical data we have on them. We told them every piece of information that we had in our computer system that talked about their patient satisfaction scores, their length of stay, their readmission rates, their billing rates, and we went over all those numbers. And all we told them is, are there abnormalities to this? Is there a number that doesn't make any sense to you? And now what we're going to do is the harder structure and go and start talking about what performance measures can we judge you on. And once we judge those performance measures, how do we compensate you for that? And there'll be a real push and tug on that. Because people say, I don't want to be judged by my performance on that one. Or I want to be judged on this one. Or I want you to pay me more if I do this and less if I do that. Well, maybe not less if I do that, but more if I do this. So that challenge is what we're going to go through. And there's an opportunity for folks to call you and say, I don't like what JPS is doing. So in essence, to try to avoid that, I'd like to give you as much information as we can. We're not at that stage, but I'd like to meet with you all and say, here are some of the things that we're going to look for in a performance-type measure in our contracts. At the same time, telling our doctors there'll be no surprises. And we want the best for our patients. And if we keep in mind the patient, I think it will provide us a lot of answers. If you have been late with getting folks into the operating room, time and time and time again, we're going to make a change in that. You can't schedule two things at the same time. You can't tell people to come to your clinic at 9 o'clock, but you're not available to the clinic until 11 o'clock. And I'm not suggesting that that's happening, but if we find that that is happening, we'll stop it. It's all based on the focus on the patient. So I wanted to let you all know that because we'll try to brief you, because sometimes those can have a political edge to them, and people will call you and say, I don't like what JPS is doing, or they're changing my contract and they're tough. We feel strong about our relationship with the University of North Texas Health Science Center. I've had the opportunity to meet Dr. Williams now on numerous occasions, and I will tell you that I'm impressed with his approach to running that organization. That's not a political statement. It's that I think he appears to be very pragmatic. I think it's also helpful to me to have a former administrator of a hospital coming in to run that system, because he understands a lot of what we're expected to do from a network standpoint. Our other relationships that we have with our surgery department and others, we'll continue to try to figure out how to make those the best we can and other services we provide. So I didn't mean to go long in the tooth, but I know that that's what we're trying to do at JPS. If there's any ways that we can help you all from a county standpoint, if there's mistakes we made, we'll tell you, boy, that performance measure that we tried to do for our employees or we tried to do for our doctors just didn't work. We really stepped in on that one. We'll be happy to give you that as you look at ways to always be the good stewards of the tax dollar. And for the mistakes we made, you won't have to make. For the things that we did right, you can enhance and do even better at the county level. So we'll help you in any way, and we'll continue to go through that, particularly as we go through some of the training of Lean Six Sigma and try to figure out where it works. That is not a one-size-fits-all, this is a perfect thing, and we're all going to begin to drink the Lean Six Sigma Kool-Aid and feel great about it. That doesn't really work. Sometimes what you learn in Chapter 10 of some book doesn't fit very well, so you have to accommodate it to yourselves. So I want to just give you all that update and let you know that's the process as we head into physician contracts. I think there has been a historical context by which those contracts have been a little bit politically tainted, and they've been written based on who liked to or who was out to get somebody or who was mad at somebody at the time. I just don't have any interest in doing that. It's all based on what can you provide and how are you going to enhance our patients. I'm not really interested in who's mad at who or who wants what. It's just a matter of doing things the best way we can. So that I wanted to give you that update and let you know. Thank you all for your service and tell you that we'll be setting up meetings with each individual office and tell you about this process so that you're not surprised by any of it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Robert. What time frame will these negotiations on the physician contracts take place?
Between now and January is probably what it will be over the summer, and we're going to obviously do that, overlay that at the same time we're doing budget, so we may combine some of our meetings with y'all and discuss the budget aspects and discuss some of our physician issues. Right now, we've taken the last 2 months and just collected the data, and we had all those meetings last week, and now we'll go into the performance side. But we haven't even gotten any models yet, Commissioner, but I will keep you informed.
One more thing, I wanted to congratulate you on Wendy Burkholter and Dawn, whose name I have forgotten, but she works for Wendy in the Homelessness Initiative. Their presentation to the Health Care for the Homeless Committee yesterday was the most incisive presentation on the 1115 waiver that I have sat through.
Fantastic.
So far. It was
Well, I
very,
appreciate
very
it.
helpful.
That's an indication of those smarter people than I hires that we have at JPS, and they're wonderful, and they're good people. And Wendy is a prime example, and so is Dawn. They're great people. And I think their commitment to homelessness, your commitment, this court's commitment, is powerful for this community. So thank you for your compliment.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that the first thing you did to incorporate that cultural change is to get the employees to believe in the values and the vision and so forth. How did you come up with that common vision and a set of values and then being able to get everybody to buy into it? How do you do that?
Well, we have a very supportive board, and we have a board that wants to be involved in those type things and wants to help us with our mission statement. And I think you have a good deal of communication with the people that work there. And if you've worked there for 25 years, you thank them and say, how can we make it better? And if they're new, you say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to transform health care for the community we serve. And in order to do that, there's going to be some things that we do. And we're just now on Monday going to start our first of a series of employee forums by which we have people and we come out and we say, here's what JPS believes in with its pillars. Here's what stewardship means. Here's what it means that we have the luxury of using tax dollars. But here's how you need to be efficient with it. And you begin to communicate that, and you make it very practical. If you get too high up in this sort of verbose kind of, we all believe in great and wonderful things, it doesn't really help unless you get very practical and say, this is what it means on your shift when you work weekends from 10 to 10 at night. And that's been hugely helpful. But we've got a lot of alignment. That's what we're trying to do with the physician contracts, is align our physicians to do that, because if our nurses and our physicians are going this way, the patient's the only one in the middle getting hurt.
Well, let me summarize what you just said, because I think it can be very useful in what the county is launching, is about to do. You're talking about creating cultural change by instilling a common set of vision and values and making sure that everybody from the top to the bottom buy into it, right?
Yes, sir.
Essentially, and then you obtain feedback from all the stakeholders to get a good idea of where we are and where we want to go. And then you talk about beginning to look at how to change the process using the Lean Six Sigma approach. And then the next step is to eliminate non-valuable and wasteful activities, processes. And then you remove the variation by basically incorporate systematic approach to the operation to make sure everything is kind of standardized and measurable. And then you apply technology, and the thing here is we got to always, it's going to be a long process, and it won't be a one-step solution. It will be a long journey, but we got to concentrate on outcome and performance.
Very much, and I think you capsulize that perfectly, and you really have three groups of people. You have those that are very zealous about it, and sometimes they get out in front a little too fast. You have that middle group that just really wants to say, where are we going and what are we doing, and I'm in. And then you have a third unfortunate group that says, I'm not interested in this and I don't want any part of it. And you have to mesh those three groups together. You got to kind of hold some back, say, wait for the process to get to you. You have to encourage those in the middle, and those on the inside, you have to say, if you're a poison pill to the organization and you don't want to start helping the patient the way you should, maybe this is not your profession. Maybe there's a better one for you. And those are challenges, no question. It's not easy, and I think there's never the process by which you declare it's over. It's just a constant. But you summarized it perfectly well. Thank you.
Just one more question. What will you think could happen if the members of the board did not buy into this? You think that you would be successful at all?
No, you wouldn't be successful. You have to have buy-in from the board on a variety of reasons. You all appoint board members that are geographically represented, and it's a great conduit to the community to tell them what we're doing. If you do this isolated and JPS just does it, community doesn't understand what we're doing and why, then you'll fail. And two, the board is our guidance. They're the ones that set the policy and the direction for us as staff to interact upon and do. We deal with the daily operations. They deal with the policy and say, go and hit these goals. I don't care how you hit them, just hit them. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Go do it. And our board's very good at allowing us to do that, but if we didn't have that as a set, it wouldn't be successful, in my opinion. So,
good points.
I guess the thing I want to add, yesterday we also received steering committee for our regional health partnership, received kind of an update on the 1115 waiver. I know Robert is going to come forward to the court here in the next month or couple of months and give us kind of an outline of how many waiver type projects did we get, where are they at, how much dollars are we talking about. So that'll be coming forth in the very near future. And I too want to just say that I think what you talked about in the approach, we take a lot of pride, and I say this on a monthly basis to our employees about how proud I am of them and the way they treat the folks that come in front of them, whether they be people in the tax office or whether they be people in the jail. They're always treated with respect. And I know it's an uphill, to some extreme, it is an uphill climb, but I want the perception to change from JPS as the county hospital with the stigma attached to that, to where everybody will begin to feel like it is a privilege to be able to work at JPS, and not that JPS ought to feel privileged that I'm working there. And if the doctors or anybody else believes that, you know, JPS ought to be privileged to think that I'm going to work there and therefore they don't treat the patients with respect and that they don't honor their time and honor their deal, then, you know, I think this court stands with you. They don't need to be there.
right.
Because, you know, it ought to be a privilege to serve the folks that they're getting to serve at that county hospital, at that hospital, and I want that to be the perception of everybody. And nothing irritates me more than to go into a doctor's office, whether it be in their office, whether it be in the hospital, for a 10 o'clock appointment, and At 11 o'clock, I haven't been pulled back or I haven't been seen. Now, I understand that there's exceptions, but all that's got to happen, if there's an emergency and they got called out for an emergency, somebody can walk out and say, golly, the doctor's been called away for an emergency. I hope you understand. Everything's going to be delayed. You can make a choice. But nothing irritates me more than if there's an example of what you're talking about as far as a double booking, where they intentionally know that there's no way they can be in two places at one time. That's, in my mind, is not acceptable, and it doesn't lend the type of attitude that we want to be portraying to our citizens as they come into that facility. So,
Well, you all have asked me numerous times what happens with the Affordable Health Care Act in 2014, and there isn't a crystal ball that knows that answer. But part of it makes JPS a better place because it's a more competitive market. And so we should be, and we should welcome that competitive nature. And to your point, if somebody comes in and says, you're real lucky I'm here today, that's not an attitude that we appreciate. And what happens over time is those people become less and less. If it's the norm and you allow people to do that, they'll grow. If you say, it's not the attitude we want, and I'm going to publish your scores and let people know, just as mine and everybody else on the teams are published, I think that's really helpful. So I appreciate your comment, but I also appreciate y'all's support. None of this is easy, and it won't be easy for any changes that y'all might make at the county level, because there's going to be there's always a group of resistance. We don't like changing styles sometimes, so it's always hard. But I always tell people, you're not wearing the same clothes you wore 40 years ago. You don't have a healthcare system that you had 40 years ago, so it has to change. So,
Well, JPS doesn't have a monopoly on delays at doctor's offices, I can assure you of that. It's that way all over the county.
We definitely don't want that monopoly. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we could go to item B now. This is an update from TCDRS as it relates to our retirement system. Ms. Acuna is here to address the court at this time.
welcome back.
Welcome
Thank
back.
you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge Whitley, Commissioners. It's that time of year. The intent of this presentation is just basically to get y'all thinking about plan decisions that you may want to make or whether or not you want to maintain your plan. So I'm just going to remind you of the structure of TCDRS, and then towards the end of the presentation, I'll get into your specific numbers. I want to begin by highlighting the key strengths of your TCDRS plan. This is an employee savings-based plan, and you are advance funding the future benefits you promise current employees. Our funding policy is the most conservative in Texas, one of the most conservative nationally. And one of the reasons for this is that we do not allow any of our 640-plus employers to take contribution rate holidays, nor do we allow them to pay a contribution rate less than what the actuary specifies from year to year. We also adjust each entity's required rate on an annual basis to make sure that all liabilities are funded within a closed 20-year amortization. And finally, as a court, you have flexibility and local control. If you choose, you can adjust your plan benefits to meet your budgetary needs on an annual basis. In all, TCDRS serves more than 235,000 Texans. We provide them with retirement, disability, and survivor benefits. Our most recent numbers show that TCDRS paid almost $800 million in benefits, and these are 2011 numbers, and almost $800 million of that, almost $36 million of that $800 million came right back to Tarrant County to serve the local community here. We were created in 1967 by Texas legislature. We're managed by a 9-member board of trustees that are appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. We receive no state funding. TCDRS plans are funded through investment earnings, employer contributions, and then employees own money into the system. As of December 31st, 2012, the size of the total fund was an estimated $19.9 billion. We are one of the largest 50 public retirement systems in the country, and our employers benefit from the economies of scale. According to the National Institute of Retirement Security Research, plans like TCDRS can deliver the same level of target benefit as plans such as 401ks at roughly 46% less cost. And the three main reasons for that are that research has shown that professional investment managers' returns are about 2% higher a year than individuals who invest on their own in 401k type plans. Second, our investment portfolio is forever young. We exist across generations, so we can keep the portfolio optimally balanced. And last, the average lifespan of a large group of people, such as the ones we have at TCDRS, can be calculated with a great deal of accuracy. And as a result, individuals do not have to oversave to provide for a lifetime benefit in retirement. At nearly 90% funded, TCDRS is in the top 20% of public employees' retirement system when it comes to our funding level. Ratings agencies such as Fitch and S&P consider 80% and above a general indicator of a plan's good financial health. As I mentioned earlier, TCDRS is a savings-based plan. Every paycheck, a portion of your employee's pay goes to fund their TCDRS retirement benefit. Your court sets the employee deposit rate anywhere between 4% and 7%, and of course, employees here at Tarrant County are contributing 7% of their pay towards their future retirement. And then, of course, on an annual basis, employees earn 7% interest on that money, and that percentage is set by the legislature. The benefit your employer receives when he becomes eligible to retire is based on how much he saved over his career and the employer match, the age of the individual, and the option he chooses upon retirement. The employer match is also dependent upon the court. Your current match is $2 for every dollar the employee has saved over their career. The match can range anywhere from dollar for dollar all the way up to $2.50 for every dollar the employee has saved. Among the many advantages of this benefit design is that costs are more predictable. When benefits are based on salary before retirement rather than the account balance, costs can jump at the end of a career if there is a job change, raise, or a lot of overtime. In this plan, costs are predictable as they are based on savings over the entire career. For your plan, we estimate that about 35 to 40% of current and future Tarrant County employees will retire and receive a benefit from TCDRS, from Tarrant County, but administered through TCDRS.
You're saying 35 to 40%?
Of current and future employees, correct.
I'm really surprised that that's not a little bit higher percentage because
It's actually higher than the system-wide average. System-wide, the average is 25%. So you are above our system-wide average, which means that people like Tarrant County, they're sticking around. So let's just recap your benefits. As I mentioned earlier, your employee deposit rate is 7%. The employer match is currently 2 to 1. You currently have an 8-year vest. That is the minimum amount of time someone has to stay employed at Tarrant County to earn the right to retire. Those individuals become retirement age eligible at either age 60 with 8 years of service, through the rule of 75, where their age plus their years of service combine to equal the number 75, and through 30 years, any age for retirement. Now let's take a look at your employee and retiree profile. On average, your employees are 47 years old with an estimated 13 years of service, so most of them are vested, and an annual average compensation of little over $51,000. Your retiree profile, on average, we see that people from Tarrant County retire at age 62 after about 18 years of service, and annually they are taking home an income of approximately, on average, $26,100. And that does include cost of living adjustments. So this excerpt comes from page 3 of your retirement plan assessment. This graph shows you estimated replacement ratios of final salary prior to retirement based on 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years of service. So for example, if you look at the middle bar, if a person works 20 years at Tarrant County and retires, that person is estimated to replace approximately 52% of his final salary in retirement. Because you and your employees are saving for benefits in advance over your employees' careers, you get the maximum power of investment earnings over time. 77 cents of each benefit dollar going out the door at TCDRS comes from investment earnings. Another 13 cents on the dollar comes from employers' contribution into the plan. and the last 10 cents comes from employees' own money into the retirement plan. So you can see how important investments are to funding your retirement benefits. So let's take a closer look at investments. The good news is the actual return for 2012 was a little bit higher than what's reflected here on this slide. It was about 12.8% for 2012. I do want to highlight that we are long-term investors at TCDRS, and what I mean by that is that on average, system-wide, we see that employees stay employed about 17 years, and then we see them retired for about another 20. So that's a 30 to 40-year time horizon in which we have to invest for one member of the system. And you can see from this chart that we are exceeding our 8% long-term investment return assumption. At the 30-year mark, we are currently at 9.2%. In a perfect world, our investments would yield 8% year after year. This is every investment portfolio manager's dream. But we all know that it's not reality, and unfortunately, on this here, you cannot see, I don't know if you can see it on your computer screens, the gray band.
We got the gray
Okay, you've got the gray band. Okay, good. I apologize to everybody in the audience. But any given year, we expect, based on our portfolio, a certain degree of volatility or risk based on the way we've got the assets divided. And so any year, we expect that our returns are going to be either 10% above our long-term investment return assumption of 8% or 10% below. So we're expecting returns between positive 18% and negative 2% in any given year. So let's take a look at what's actually happened. And as you can see, the portfolio has performed mostly as expected. Over the last 15 years, the majority of our returns fall within that gray band, with the exception of the Great Recession in 2008 and the subsequent recovery in 2009. The many different types of assets in our portfolio minimize the risk of possible losses from any single asset class or investment. Now let's look at your 2014 required rate. Your employer contribution rate is a percentage of annualized payroll that you are required to pay to fund future benefits for current employees. The rate you are required to pay for benefits for 2014 is 14.57% of payroll, and by simply paying this rate, you are doing two things. First, you are funding employees' future retirement benefits, and you are paying down your current unfunded liability amount within that closed 20-year period. So let's talk a little bit more about those unfunded liabilities. We don't like the term unfunded liabilities at TCDRS because it implies that you are not funding them, when we know, as I just mentioned, that you are. By simply paying that required rate, you are moving that dollar amount of unfunded amount down within a closed 20-year period. You may wonder how you get these liabilities. There are two ways. The first is typically by passing a benefit enhancement that hasn't been saved for in advance, such as a retroactive employer match increase or a cost of living adjustment for retirees. Those are not funded in advance. Or when actual experience varies from what the actuaries projected, such as an investment loss. Remember that actuarial investment losses and gains are recognized over or are smoothed over a 10-year period. So they're incrementally being passed through to allow for market recovery.
So the 2008 loss is spread over a 10-year period of time.
Got it.
So we're getting a tenth of that loss
Yes,
each year. But
correct.
then as we've had gains subsequent to that, those gains are also being spread over a 10-year period.
Yes, for rate stability, that is correct. Okay, so let's take a closer look. So your current required rate went up because of, as Judge Whitley mentioned, that 10% of the 2008 investment losses being pushed through, and that's indicated there in the investment return category. And then it also went up because of payroll and salary variation in the demographic and other changes category.
Wait a minute, go back to that for just a second.
Okay?
The investment return, the 0.5% there?
Correct.
Is that the smoothing of 2008?
That's the smoothing.
Then
Plus
reduced by gains? Well, I guess it would be, if we're 2013 or 2014 now, that would be we're taking gains for 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Out of the last 4 years, we've had 3 out of the last 4 years have been gains in excess of 8%.
Okay.
Correct. So this slide illustrates a projection of your required rate long term, and it does assume an 8% return with no other actuarial gains or losses. It's important to remember that this slide changes from year to year, so it's useful to look at trends and not so much the specific numbers. And to illustrate how this projection can change over time, the red line at the very top, which is exceeding or right about 18%, is the graph that we showed you right after 2008, where we were showing you rates were going to go because of that single year loss. The green line in the middle shows you the projection after 2011, and that includes the 26.5% return in 2009, the 12.6% return in 2010, and the negative 1.2% return in 2011. The blue line at the bottom shows you where we are currently after 2012, and of course that includes the 12.8% return for 2012. Over longer periods of time, gains and losses should generally offset each other, and we should see that line flatten and stabilize. The important thing to note in terms of trends is that rates are projected to rise, and that is because 2008 losses are still outweighing subsequent gains in the system.
And that big change between 28 and 31 is when we paid off the COLA.
Very good. That's when, yes, the 20-year, that represents the 20-year amortization, and so the rate dropping because we're moving towards 100% funded.
Okay.
So this graph shows a projection of your
Just a moment. Your Honor, I don't think that was that drop on that. I don't believe that's caused by the COLA. It's caused because the COLA is paid through a 15-year amortization.
Correct.
And that there was simply the 20-year amortization for the unfunded liability.
Yeah, and there would be some COLAs in there, but yes, each COLA that's passed is funded. If it's not funded up front in the form of a lump sum, like you did last year, then it would be funded over a 15-year period.
Okay.
Okay. So the graph shows a projection of your assets, what you are expected to have on hand. That's represented by the green shaded area to pay for benefits. The red portion represents that liability. And on this chart, you can see that the red line sort of diminishes as time goes further out, and that's because, again, we are making sure to adjust that rate to make sure that they are getting paid down to zero within that time frame. Okay, and currently your plan is funded at 80%, which is where the majority of plans at TCDRS, about 70% of our plans, are funded between 80% and 100%.
But the average you said was around 88% at TCDRS.
That's the aggregate. The system as a whole, we're funded at about 88, correct. So, and then again, I apologize to the audience. The yellow portion, which I hope you see, indicates where you are currently right now at the 7% 200. This chart really just illustrates the flexibility and local control that you have, because by either adjusting the employee deposit rate and or the employer match, you can immediately impact the cost to your plan. So every year you do have the option of contributing either a higher elected rate or making an annual lump sum contribution to the plan. Either help provide cushion against future negative plan experience, such as an investment loss, or they can pre-fund a benefit enhancement, such as a cost of living adjustment for retirees.
And I believe last year we sent what? Did we send 3 for the COLA? 2.9. 2.9.
Okay. So talking a little bit, it's kind of a segue to just talk a little bit more about COLAs. There are 2 types of COLAs you can choose from. The first is a flat rate COLA, which increases all retirees' benefits by the same percentage. The TCDRS board caps the flat rate COLA and sets these limits from year to year. So from December 2011 to December 2012, CPI inflation was 1.74%. Therefore, the TCDRS board capped the COLA for this year at 2%. There's also the CPI-based COLA, which stands for Consumer Price Index. When you pass a CPI-based COLA, a percentage from 10 to 100% of a retiree's purchasing power is restored relative to each retiree's cumulative lost purchasing power over all the years that they've been retired. The CPI-based COLA allows for older and new retirees to have equal purchasing power restored. All COLAs, again, as GK mentioned, are funded over a 15-year period. COLAs are not pre-funded unless, of course, you continue with what you all did last year and pay for it up front. If they're not pre-funded, just know that passing them on an annual basis can lead to rate creep and can make costs become out of control in the future. So, the cost for all of the COLAs is on page 3 of your retirement plan assessment. I have also provided Joyce Kirk with costs for various flat rate and CPI COLAs. As a reminder, the 50% CPI COLA is what you all adopted last year for the retirees. And so I've got cost outlined, but I'm not sure that y'all want to go over that right now. If you do, let me know. If not,
One of the COLAs, when you do it, it affects, it's a cumulative type thing versus just a flat percentage.
correct.
I thought we went with a flat percentage last year. Because it was less than doing a flat percentage.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, just look. Cost, based on this year's numbers provided by TCDRS, between the 50% and the 1% is about double.
So if we did because on the flat rate, we only have two choices, 1% or 2%.
Correct.
And the flat, that's, okay, now I'm recalling why we did what we did last year. So, again, what you're saying, if we went 50% of the COLA for this year, we're talking about how much?
1.9 million, right at 2 million.
And last year, it was right at 3 million to doing the 50% of it.
I'm sorry, did I get that wrong?
No, I'm saying last year was 2.9, and you're saying this year it's 1.9.
2 million. 1.982. And the 1% is here under 40.
Okay.
And the bottom line is, truly fewer of the retirees get the benefit of the 50% because those that have been retired for the longest are cumulatively ahead of the 50% CPI. That good statement?
It is. Because of all the years that they got the 80%.
Correct. And just to give you a comparison, 80%, which we traditionally did up until last year, would cost $15.7 million.
That explains why we did it up until last year?
Yes. Well, that pretty much takes me to the end of my presentation. This is just kind of a reminder of us, the employer services rep. So you've got until December to let us know whether, December 16th to be exact, to let us know whether or not you want to make any changes to the plan, adopt a COLA, send extra money in, any things along those lines. And of course, I'm here to aid you if you need me to come back for budget workshops or whatever you may need. Do y'all have any other questions?
One of the court members, one of the things that I would point to is remember, I know we've been discussing the cash balances, the cash flow reserves and different things along that lines. We are very close to, probably next month, the auditor will begin coming around and visiting with each of y'all on kind of where we feel like we are in the cash balances, cash reserves. You know, we can anticipate what the end of the year is going to be, but that's all that it usually is an anticipation. But by December, we will have been able to close out the year, know exactly what our ending balances are, and at that point in time, I think, be prepared to make, you know, decisions with regards to, do we have extra funds that we would like to send to TCDRS with regards to either the cost of living we'll decide during the budget, but at least for other measures, you know, we can look at that. The December 16th deadline will I think, match up with when we're going to, you know, when the auditor expects to have the end of the year balances. So I think that'll all kind of work itself together, and that would be hopefully be the game plan that we would kind of operate on.
It's a good plan.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Good to see
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Members of the court, we can go to item C. This is an update on the West Nile virus activities. Dr. Curian is going to address the court at this time. Might also say that this begin our process now, where that we will have this as a standing agenda item every week for your update. Doctor.
Thank you. Good morning, Judge and the Commissioners.
Dr. Curian. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here this morning, like Mr. Manias has said, to give you an update on the West Nile virus activity this season. This GIS map illustrates all the trap locations in Tarrant County since April of this season. We have, countywide, we have 292 traps from 35 cities and DFW airport. We haven't received any submissions from 4 cities, and 2 of the cities have only part of their city in Tarrant County, so they submit their specimens to Dallas County and Health Human Services. So currently we have 35 cities and DFW airport participating in our surveillance activities. In the unincorporated area, we have 19 trap locations strategically placed in that region. This trap location map, the interactive map, has been placed on our website, and what you can do is, I'll just take you through this interactive site. If you click on on our public health website, go to the map, click on that West Nile virus view. It gives you an option of picking up the data points that you're interested in, pick up the date range you're interested in, and hit find, and you can find the data you're looking for in the specified time frame. Right now, all these boxes are white boxes. They are negative pulls because we don't have any positive pull just yet in our community. Once the positive starts appearing, you'll see red boxes, which denote the positive pulls. Okay, so the indicators that we have tracked, we are tracking this season are mosquito-based and human-based indicators. We track 5 mosquito-based indicators, which are vector abundance. Vector abundance is nothing but we are looking at the mosquito density. It provides an estimate of the relative measure of mosquitoes, especially the disease-carrying mosquitoes, which is Culex species in our community, in an area over a specified sampling period. So we, at Public Health, look at these Culex mosquito densities on a weekly basis. Okay?
Are there different kind of mosquitoes that we are looking at, or
we are looking at the Culex species, and within the Culex species there are different subspecies, but we look at all Culex species. Predominantly, if you've heard this, Culex quincufasciatus or quinx is the predominant subspecies among the Culex species that carry West Nile disease in this North Texas region. Okay, so all Culex species carry these mosquitoes. So we look at these mosquito densities on a weekly basis, and our strategy is to look at the relative increase in these mosquitoes densities from the previous week. As you all know, this is our first year of implementation of formal systematic surveillance system, so we don't have the luxury of having a historical data for comparison purposes. We don't have a baseline measure. We don't know what is to be expected at this time, if what we are seeing is normal or abnormal. So our best bet is to compare our mosquito densities to the previous week and go from week to week to week. So what we do is, if we see an increase in the mosquito density the first week, the cities where the traps are located are contacted, and they are asked to go and do an environmental inspection, look for venues for strategies for source reduction and larviciding. And the following week, the densities are reviewed again in the same location, and if the mosquito densities keep going up, even after the corrective actions have been taken, then that causes that's a cause for concern. So yesterday, we did identify a few trap locations across county. 2 particular cities had trap locations in them that showed consistent relative increase in these mosquito or Culex mosquito densities. These cities were contacted, and a recommendation to consider ground-based spraying was made. Similarly, we've also identified 2 locations within our unincorporated jurisdiction, in the unincorporated area, where, again, we've found consistent increase in Culex mosquito densities for 2 weeks in a row, even after, even after taking the corrective actions. Number of positive pools and person-positive pools are two other indicators we look at. As you know, we don't have any positive pools just yet. Infection rate vector indices are good indicators for estimating the risk of disease transmission to humans. They are calculated by taking into account the positive pools or the person-positive pools. Because we don't have any positive pools just yet, those two indicators are currently set at 0. The other indicators we look at are the human-based indicators. We look at human West Nile virus case. As you know, we already have one case in our county. This case was from the city of Fort Worth, was reported approximately 10 days ago. Last time, by this time, we had 3 human cases in our jurisdiction. Okay. Viremic blood donor is another indicator we have consistently tracked since 2003. Viremic donors are individuals who are infected with West Nile virus but do not exhibit symptoms but get detected upon donating blood. Since 2003, all blood donors are tested for West Nile virus. And that's how these, if you recall, 80% of us get infected but never exhibit symptoms, so are never diagnosed by a healthcare provider. But we can get detected if we go donate blood because our blood donors are tested. Last year, we've had 29 viremic blood donors in our community that were reported to us. What we are looking at is a graph of the mosquito densities. This is the average number of Culex mosquitoes per trap per week. This is county aggregate. The x-axis is the number of weeks. X-axis denote the weeks, and the y-axis is the number of Culex mosquitoes. I'm sorry, I see a typo. Mosquitoes is TOES. And as you can see, the graph is waning, waxing and waning. We did see a big jump in the week just before the Memorial Day, and we were closely watching all our trap locations. We did not detect any trap in the county that consistently showed an increase in densities. And if you see, the following week there was a big drop, and it's gone up again, and that's the area of concern. That week of June 9th, June 16th, there are locations that are consistently showing high densities, and those are the ones that we've recommended that they consider ground-based spraying. Okay. Just another tidbit or fun fact, we have to date tested 1,375 mosquito samples. This is far exceeded the cumulative total that we have tested in the past 5 years. And this number of mosquito samples translate into approximately 62,000 Culex mosquitoes that we've trapped this season. I wanted to bring this CDC guideline update to your attention. We were notified by the Texas Department of State Health Services that CDC had updated the guidelines. We were notified yesterday. And what's interesting is that up until the previous guidance document, the risk category level, there were 6 risk category levels. This new guidance document has condensed that 6 category levels into 4 category levels. So we have no risk, low probability of human outbreak, high probability, and then outbreak in progress. And what they've also done is elevated the presence, elevated the risk level if there is a human case detected. This previously, a human case was placed at a moderate probability of human outbreak. The new guidance document says if you have a human case, it's a high probability of human outbreak. Another change that they have introduced is to include the viremic blood donors as one of the indicators to assess the risks, which we are already tracking. So goes without saying, because the risk level has elevated in the presence of a human case, our response activities also will be intensified, and our partners will be notified of these changes. I want to end by giving you a statewide activity report. Statewide, we have 11 positive mosquito samples from 5 different counties. As you can see, we are the only North Texas county that do not have a positive sample yet. By this time last year, we've had 8 positive mosquito samples. Okay. Also, just want to point out, if you look at that asterisk by counties, we were informed that the samples from Denton and Collin and few of the Dallases were tested using RAM test. RAM test is considered as a screening test, and the CDC recommendation is to follow it by a confirmatory test. To our knowledge, there is only one city in Tarrant County that will be using RAM test because they have contracted with a private vendor to do some additional sampling and testing. Okay, so we are in talks
Which city?
With city?
Which city, yeah?
City of Arlington. And we are in talks with the city to share those samples with us so we can follow the screening results with the confirmatory test results. Our lab does the RT-PCR, which is considered as the gold standard confirmatory test.
Is that why on the map that where you showed all the black boxes, Arlington, you have the little blue triangle? Is that where they're putting additional sites?
Traps, and that's been manned and run by the private contractor. Yeah.
In many instances, it appears as though that it is either side by side or the same black box. It's the same as the black box. So in that situation, do we both have this?
No. I think they sample, the private contractors. Go ahead. Private contractors. And as far as I know, currently there is no overlap between where the private contractor is sampling and where the county is sampling.
So really those places where we have black boxes with blue triangles, either the black box ought to be taken away?
Those were initials, yeah. Those were the cumulative totals. So if you go to the more recent map, I think that overlap will be taken away.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. And human cases statewide, Texas statewide, we have 2 human cases. One, was from our jurisdiction. The other one was from Anderson County. And this was reported approximately a month and a half ago. And, of course, we have no human deaths reported just yet. So I want to end by saying, the best way to prevent West Nile virus disease is to avoid the mosquito bite. So personal accountability, personal responsibility is a huge part of this equation. So we all need to work as individuals, neighborhoods, communities together to adopt and practice those 4Ds so we have a good season this year. On behalf of Public Health, thank you for your time.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, members of the court, on item D, this is the legislative issues. Mr. Mendez is here to address the court.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll be very brief. Today is the last day of the special session, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And hopefully there won't be another one. There were 4 items put on the call for this session. The only one that is done completely is the redistricting issue. Transportation funding was passed out of the House and is now back over into the Senate for approval of the changes that were made in the House, as well as the criminal justice issue dealing with penalty for 17-year-old capital murder convictions. Both of those will be basically subject to how they do the order of business in the Senate. As you know, based on the headlines today, the abortion issue is going to be subject to a filibuster by Senator Davis. If they choose to do the transportation and the criminal justice issues before that, they will pass no problem. But if they get caught up in the regular order of business, then they could go down with the abortion issue. And who knows, at 12:01 tomorrow morning, we may be back again to deal with the abortion issue all over again. But that's subject to the governor's call. You have to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. The members of the court, that's all we have on the formal agenda. Judge Whitley, we do have an audience participation.
Right, we have a Randall Howard. If you please go ahead and state your name and your address for the record.
Good morning, Judge. My name is Randall Howard, and I am the president of R.D. Howard, LLC, a local construction company. With your permission, I'm having my son to pass out what I'll be reading to you this morning. And if I seem a little bit uneasy, well, then I've never been in this situation before. Press release, June 25th, 2013, Tarrant County, Texas, for immediate release. Tarrant County investigates contractor for wrongdoing. Company president disputes any and all allegations. Fort Worth, Tarrant County, Texas. Randall D. Howard, president of R.D. Howard, LLC, part of a 67-year-old Fort Worth family-run firm, has been unofficially notified that his construction services company is being investigated by Tarrant County government officials and local media outlets for possible wrongdoing. Howard has been contacted by and is fully and freely cooperating with the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. Howard is being investigated for improperly billing and getting paid for materials that were to be furnished in the first of two adjacent contracts, but were later furnished and paid for by the county. Additionally, it is being alleged that Howard was paid $5,775 for work at a second work site nearby that Howard had, quote unquote, verbally agreed to do free of charge under his original contract at the first work site. The work was done during the summer of 2012. Questions have since been raised pertaining to whether Howard gave kickbacks to Tarrant County officials as part of this alleged unwarranted billing and payments. Tarrant County administrative, legal, purchasing, construction staffs, and media outlets have reportedly been reviewing all documents and even been digging up portions of the two adjacent work sites along State Highway 1187 in Tarrant County to determine if Howard's work meets the construction design specifications and matches the billed quantities. In recent years, several people have died in car wrecks at the site in an S-curve in the road, prompting the county to do the work. By this statement, Randall D. Howard hereby patently and universally denies any and all allegations and goes on to state, I have never given or paid any kickback or under-the-table payment to any Tarrant County official, nor have I ever been requested or any have been requested of me, nor, to my knowledge, of or by anyone associated with my company. Moreover, I have never given any such payments to any government official or anyone else. Number two, I have never knowingly or willfully overbilled, double-billed, received unearned payments from Tarrant County officials or any others of our more than 100 local, state, federal, and government agencies, several dozen Fortune 500 companies, and countless thousands of private businesses and individual property owners that we have had the honor of serving. And I am absolutely offended and insulted that anyone would question my integrity in this manner. Number three, allow me to also unconditionally state that all of the originally contracted work and any and all work additions, deletions, or changes to the scope were by written, and I've underlined in bold, written, mutually agreed upon offsetting responsibilities, parentheses, after review by multiple county departments and multiple staff members, close parentheses, and were done in strict accordance with the contract documents. All of the work added to our original scope was numerous modifications to the county's original designs directed by the TxDOT inspector. The parties mutually agreed, again, bold and underlined, in writing for the county to supply some of the materials in exchange for our doing the extra work without extra pay. Not 1 cent was unearned. Last, number 4. Last, any objective professional review of the documents will disprove both of these allegations. Like in the case of the Duke lacrosse team members falsely accused of rape, Howard knows firsthand the terribly destructive effect of such allegations being broadcast by the media. So Howard is confronting his accusers head-on before the irreparable damage is done. When the Bass Hall opened in the late 1990s, another Howard-owned company, Howard Construction Company Incorporated, was falsely accused of, it should be, improperly installing the brick sidewalks around the new $60 million downtown Fort Worth landmark. Under a contract with his then largest customer, the city of Fort Worth, the city blamed Howard for defective work and publicly threatened to sue Howard, but never did after outside review of the facts. North Texas media outlets pounced on the story, and by default, the public deemed Howard guilty and all but destroyed the company. According to Howard, bank lines of credit were reduced or withdrawn. Longtime vendors and subcontractors were reluctant to do business with the company or charged higher rates, and Howard was often confronted with wisecracks and negative comments by ill-informed friends and strangers alike. Howard states that on the morning the first story hit the Star-Telegram, the pastor of a church for which his company was to build a new parking lot called and abruptly canceled the sizable contract. And the same pattern of lost work, negative public perception, especially within the highly competitive construction community, continued throughout 5 years of trial delays by the city after Howard actually sued the city for their failure to pay him. What is worse, during this time, Howard's suit against the city was never reported by either one of the same media outlets, in spite of press releases being sent out to each by Howard and his attorneys. At the end of a 2-week trial, the jury awarded Howard 3 times as much as the city owed. The city did not tell the media that several times while Howard's work was in progress, the city directed Howard to change the brick installation procedures without first securing the required approval from the engineering firm that originally designed the work. In other words, the city directed Howard to change the recipe for the cake more than once while Howard was in the process of baking it, and then blamed the baker, Howard, when it didn't taste right. So, Howard knows firsthand the devastating effect of such inaccurate and baseless allegations. Finally, like the local and national economy, after more than 15 years, Howard is just now starting to really rebound with major contracts at DFW Airport, Bell Helicopter, more than 100 contracts for the Fort Worth School District, and work for the Texas Department of Transportation, to name just a few. Howard has done more than about 30 to 40 contracts for the county over about 20 years. Moreover, after some urging and re-welcoming from the city, he is back doing work for the city of Fort Worth, where he's completed about 60 contracts over the past 30 years alone. By offering up his side of the story and refuting all charges, Howard hopes that this time the facts will be more carefully and objectively reviewed before they are presented to the public, whereby his business and personal reputation, and even that of his 10- and 5-year-old children, are all but destroyed again. No further comments will be made or media interviews granted by Randall D. Howard, president of R.D. Howard, LLC. And one last comment, though. I would just like to make reference to something. During the 2000 election, when there was this huge debate over whether to stop counting the ballots or continue counting, my pastor, B.R. Daniels Sr., made what I thought was a very profound statement. And he said, "The truth does not fear a more careful investigation." The truth does not fear a more careful investigation. You can spend all the time and money you want to investigating me. I don't have anything to hide. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. As I'm sure you're aware, because this is not on the agenda, we can't respond at this point in time, but we do appreciate very much you coming out today.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to do all the work for Tarrant County that I have, and I look forward to continuing to do it in the future.
Anything else at this time?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Again, we will close today in memory from our William Moody. We will now recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items exempted under sections 551, 1071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned.